All right. What is going on, everybody? And welcome back to the Serious Angler podcast powered by our friends over at X2 Power Batteries. Back with the captain, Mr. Andy Full. And as always, I'm your host, Bailey Egbrett. And if you saw or you're listening at a later date on MP3, new intro music because uh, this whole YouTube thing is fun with when you hire somebody to make you an intro or an outro and they don't buy you a music license and YouTube copyright claims it. So that's been fun of them basically saying, hey, you can have your show up here, but we're going to not show it to as many people as they can because it's a copyright claim and you can't make money on it. So I had to do a whole new like music on the intro. So that's why things have changed up. But yeah, that's where we're at, Andy. And we're late to tonight's show because literally as I'm about to click go live, my whole system crashes and said, hey, we're going to try and make this hard for you to go live tonight.
Yeah.
So, but we're here.
Everything is against us, or
like
you, or it's just against you at this moment. And I feel like it started for you over the weekend. So with Mother Nature decided to blow 100 out of the south.
Yeah.
So
if it's a Saturday, it means it's going to be the windiest day of the week. And I know we're preaching to the choir with our guests today, or if it's tournament day, it's going to be the worst conditions. Whereas in practice, it'll be amazing.
I feel like the last 4 weekends, it has blown like 80 miles an hour in New York State. And I think it's actually going to blow again this Saturday. And I don't have a guy
right now,
which is nice.
Right now, we're good. Knock on wood.
Oh, where are you going this weekend?
I am going to a lake called Onondaga for another local tournament. So it should be a fun time. But nonetheless, we are here. So let's get it in before my technology decides to I feel like I had less problems before I bought the fancy, expensive podcast stuff, equipment wise. But now here we are. But we're trying, nonetheless. We're trying to put out shows. We have a great show today. We only have a part one. We actually had a part two planned. And unfortunately, the guests that we had lined up for it, all three of them had to back out, unfortunately.
Oh, wow. That's like a rare phenomenon.
It's been a scheduling nightmare for the past month, dude. I swear it's been
welcome to fishing season.
Yeah, well, it's that, and it's been rough. But either way, we have them rescheduled for the coming week, so they're going to get on here. So we won't spoil it until we have them on. We have a great episode today. We got Bassmaster Elite Series Pro Buddy Gross joining us, and we're going to be talking about a very fun topic. About offshore fishing. We're going to dive into some Lipless crankbait juice. We're going to dive into a whole bunch of it because I think in my mind, Buddy is one of the best offshore anglers on the planet right now. And has been one where a guy that, you know me, Andy, if I had the choice, I'd rather be as far away from the bank as I can when I catch him. And so Buddy's been one that I've studied and I've kept on track like for watching live anyway, and keeping up with social and things like that of how he does his stuff, listening to shows, listening to anything that he's got to teach, and which is awesome to get him back on here. So looking forward to getting him in.
The last time we had him on, there was like a severe thunderstorm and it started pouring while he was in his garage.
I wonder if he'll remember that, but yeah, we'll have to bring that up where it literally sounded like his I think it was a barn or something, whatever his boat was at. It was like about to come down because it was a crazy storm. But yeah, so we're dealing with a whole bunch of stuff, but we are live here and we appreciate everybody that's joining in. We got a couple of things before we kick things off and get Buddy here on the show. And first things first is until May 12th, Hobie Eyewear is actually running a cool promo for Mother's Day. And that is with every purchase, they're going to throw in some Hobie Eyewear goodies. One of them being a pretty cool Hobie Eyewear premium towel, which you think towel, whatever, but it's actually like been kind of clutch for me. I keep it in the kayak with me for wiping off my hands when it's cold, wet. You've got fish slime all over you. But nonetheless, I mean, 20% off with our link. You can save some money, hook yourself up, your wife up, your mama up with something for Mother's Day, some shades. So that's pretty cool till 5/12, so May 12th, but our 20% off code lasts year round. And then as well, we're running another Blackfish gear giveaway for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be doing 2 different sun hoodies from Blackfish Gear. And here's how you can enter that. And let me remind people, for we're going to be running a whole bunch of Blackfish gear giveaways throughout this year, especially on the live shows. And what we're going to be doing, we're going to have select products for it. But we're not going to actually have like a specific color or model. We're going to let you guys pick. So right now I'm keeping it open. You can do the Angler, you can do the Swift hoodie, you can do whichever sun hoodie you want, your size, and pick the color, and we'll order those out to you guys. So 2 different Blackfish gear sun hoodies. All you got to do is simply go to either Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whichever your application allows, and leave us a rating and review, I should say, on MP3. Now, first, before I get into the extra, if you've already done that, send us either an email at theseriousangler.com@gmail.com or DM us on social, letting us know you've already done it, and we'll add you to the running. Or if you haven't, do that. You get entered into that giveaway. We'll pick a winner for next Tuesday night. We'll do it on social, but as well as we'll mention on the show. And extra entries, if you go to on the same platforms, Apple, Spotify, go to Business from the Bass Boat. You get an extra entry if you do it there. Extra entry if you go to Kayak Fishing Weekly, do another one there, as well as Lure Lab. So you can enter 4 different times. It's pretty easy, and it helps us out big time because the ratings and reviews ultimately help us get shown more on those platforms, and it's much appreciated. And you can win free sun hoodies for free. It'll take you 30 seconds.
They're the best.
It's wicked. So with that, just mention if you are coming from that episode and you're putting a review in, if you're able to, I know like Spotify, you can just leave a rating. So just screenshot it, send it to us like DM or an email. If you have an app on Apple Podcasts, you don't have to submit it to it. Just say you're coming from the Buddy Gross episode, and we'll enter you in there. Just make sure you guys are listening to next week's episode. It's going to be, I'll give you a little hint. We got one of our 4 guests will be Garrett Paquette, who's coming back. It's been a long time since we have Garrett on.
Oh man.
But yeah, make sure you guys just communicate with us. We'll get you entered one way or another if you already have or if you haven't yet. And we appreciate it. And we'll be announcing the winner of that giveaway next Tuesday night on social and on the show. But pretty awesome stuff. And last but not least, if you guys haven't seen, Omnia is running 35% off sale of all Omnia apparel. They got some pretty wicked stuff. So check that out. We got all that, some of Buddy's baits that he's won on and or is loves throwing. Like you got the Zoom, what was it, the Z crawl worm, I believe it was called. Got that link down below directly to Omnia, so you guys can go check those out. We're definitely going to be talking about that and like the Spro, Aruka Shad, things like that on this show. So without further ado, we're sitting here talking about his baits. Let's get the man on here himself, Mr. Buddy Gross. What's going on, man?
Hey, man. Glad to be on the show again. It's been a while.
Yeah, welcome back.
Yeah. Do you remember the first time when we had you on here and it sounded like your house was going to come down?
I do. It was a big storm came through that day. Well, today I'm out here in a little shed and I've got barn swallows flying around everywhere, so you may see them in the background. So I got to try to move in on my property here right now.
So you're saying we have special guests? Is what you're getting at?
I've been chasing them with everything in the house: dip nets, shotguns, brooms, a little bit of everything. So it's pretty interesting.
Damn birds.
Yeah, I've never seen so many. I guess I've been Googling trying how to get rid of them. They said the only way you get rid of them is get rid of the insects. So I guess I'm glad they're here. They might be eating all my mosquitoes.
Yeah, that is good.
Hey, I'll trade that. I'll take birds over mosquitoes, man.
I'll tell you what, you can keep the birds. Honestly, I have enough birds flying around my house. I think everyone around me has like multiple bird feeders. So every morning we wake up to cardinals and blue jays like fighting with each other. But I don't know what could be worse, right? Swallows, or every time you walk outside and like basically eating a butterfly, because we have so many butterflies flying around in my neighborhood. It's unreal.
That's crazy.
Like
butterflies are probably
take them over skeeters.
Yeah. Oh, no skeeters yet, but I have huge carpenter bees flying around my house too, which I'm like, great. You can take those too, buddy.
I got some of those too. I just had one hit me in the ear about 5 seconds ago.
Oh, they're terrible.
I'll tell you what, though, you guys in the South, I don't know where the most northern state they have them, but thankfully we don't have them here. It's one of the very small pluses that we have. It's a short list of advantages of the North.
Are you talking about
very short list? But no, not those. I'm talking about like the giant red wasp that you guys got down there. Yeah, I learned that real quick my first time at Lake Fork, and it landed on the window as I was with Destin and Marion. We're driving down. It landed on my window, and this thing is like this big. And I'm like, what in the H is this? And at the time I was like talking with my now wife about, joking, moving to Texas. And I'm like, scratch that. We're not moving to Texas. I don't want to deal with these things.
Hey,
like,
and they build nests in that standing timber, and you hit one of those places standing timber and get them shook up. It gets ugly in the boat in a hurry.
There's a clip of one of the shows we have here in the Serious Angler Podcast Network is Kayak Fishing Weekly. And our host for that, Justin Largen, has video of me because I'm allergic to wasps. We're on Santee Cooper of prime time when they're in exactly what you're talking about, those little small bush tree looking things, and they're just in it everywhere. And me being just oblivious to the world, I'm not paying any attention going down the bank here, and he's sees me, we're near each other talking, and I kick one up and I just cower in a freaking kayak of all things. I can't do anything. And I'm like a little girl. I'm just sitting there like, just please don't sting me. Please don't sting me. And I'm like having Justin come save me. And he's got a video of me freaking out over it.
I'm allergic to them too, not deadly allergic. Like if I get zapped by one in my arm, my whole arm, like up to my neck, will swell like twice in size and then slowly go down. It's great. Wow.
Did you say you're not that? That sounds pretty allergic.
Yeah, but I won't die. I've never died, so
never died. Good gosh. Well, scratch the bee talk because we're here to talk some fishing and catch up with you, buddy. Before we talk some fishing, I would love to. We were talking about a little bit offline, but your off season and what that looks like for you, because man, you're pretty invested in your kids and what you guys got going on, and it sounds like what your kiddos got is pretty dang similar to tournament fishing. So we'll kind of hit on that for the off season for you.
She just turned 15 this past December, but she's pretty competitive in this barrel racing, and I didn't have any idea when we first bought our first horse what it was going to turn into, and now it's every weekend and sometimes weekly. So we just come back from Oklahoma dodging the tornadoes and had a big barrel race there. I think it had like 1,800 entries, so she's got some pretty stiff competition, and it was a little rough weekend for her, but she weathered through it, come back on Sunday, made a little bit of money, and we got home about 5:30, I guess, Monday morning. It was pretty late.
It sounds pretty dang similar to what you're doing.
It is entry fees, but it's good reward. The only difference is these horses got a mind on their own. At least my boat, it minds me a little bit,
Yeah, you built that. The horse is a little bit different.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of what she does, though. She's very competitive. She's starting to get that competitive spirit. When I get her to where she can't stand to lose, we'll be a lot better off, but she's getting there.
That's awesome, dude. I mean, that is something, though, like we talked about it a little bit offline, but that's going to be something she remembers forever, is traveling around those tournaments with Dad and things like that. That's pretty
She loves it. I really wish she'd have went the fishing route, but that's not what she wanted to do, so I'm leaving it with her, whatever she wants to do.
That's freaking cool, though. I mean, you said 14 or 1,800 entries, like that many people.
Entries in this one. It was a BBR. It was their world finals. She finished in the Southeast in the top 10 in points and stuff. So I mean, she did good for to be getting started. Trey McKinney's sister's really big into it, and she does real well. So we get to every time my daughter gets around her, she's watching her to see what she can learn. So it's pretty cool to watch it happen.
So you're saying basically there's a small subset of the Elite Series that travels to these barrel racing things too.
I don't know that Trey does, but I promise you his sister does, because every time we've been going to these bigger shows, she's always there.
That's pretty dang cool, man. I mean, it's basically the same audience, same culture.
It is. And I mean, it's a big culture, but what they're running, these open barrel races, they're running against men, women, and children. So they let men run the barrels in the open barrel races. So when they're into these shows and there's 1,800 entries, there's the best in the country. I mean, they're all there trying to win the money. So it's no different than an elite, but it gets some of the amateurs get to run against those elite type riders. So it gives her more competition to raise her level up is what I'm trying to do.
Dang. And you said she got 5th on the last one?
She got 5th. It's kind of what I would call the redemption round. There was like 460 or so in that one, and she finished 5th in that arena. So she did pretty good on that one. She made a little bit of money. They only paid 5 places. She's the last one in the money, so that was a good thing. And I'm talking about thousandths of a second separate these riders. You might be 1/10 off and be 60 places down. I mean, it's crazy how tight it gets.
Wow.
God.
A tenth of a second. I'm talking about 1 second separates 1,000 people.
You're kidding me.
No, it's tight. I never would have dreamed it when we first got into it. I was like we were second off. We're pretty good. You go somewhere else, you'll be a second off. You'll be 1,000 places between you and first.
Well, we're about a split second away from turning the show into barrel racing because now I'm very curious about how this stuff works.
Now,
it's about keeping the horses healthy is what it's about, to be honest with you. You got to really take care of them or they can't perform. It's no different than an athlete on a football team or a baseball team. If they don't have all their stuff working, they don't work either.
Dang. Oh, it's screw a dog. I mean, you got no time for a dog. You gotta got the horse you gotta take care of. That's
can you imagine because she started at 13 and she started late. A lot of these kids get started at 7, 8 years old. So she was really way behind. They're putting those kids on a daggum machine that weighs 1,300 pounds, solid muscle. It's like putting them on a crotch rocket and turning them loose and saying, go get it. I mean, it's a little bit intimidating to be a parent, but it's very intimidating to watch it happen. I mean, I'm telling you, it's pretty slick.
Yeah, I think I'd rather pick a bass boat going 70. I think
it depends on who's driving it, right? Like,
she tells me every time I get on to her, she's like, "You climb on here." Last time I climbed on one, I was sliding out of the stirrup and I tried to jump down. That was the day before I left my first Bassmaster Classic, and I went up there with a sprained ankle on a roller on one of those strollers where you had to roll around.
So, I remember that. I remember them talking about that.
I always tell her, I was like, if you want to keep riding horses, you better keep me off of horses, because if I ain't catching fish, you ain't riding horses.
Yeah. That's awesome, dude. That's freaking cool. Well, we'll definitely have to have a follow-up show where we strictly talk barrel racing. There might not be anybody that listens to it, but we'll have fun talking about it.
Hey, it's more interesting than what everybody thinks. Everybody that starts coming and hanging out and seeing it and watching, they all love it. But it's very competitive. Very competitive.
Well, here's my last question about it. Just being curious from the media side of things. In bass fishing now, there seems to be hundreds of podcasts and shows and YouTube channels and magazines and outlets. Is it the same thing for like barrel racing? Like, is there all like different shows and things like that are just like this?
It's getting there. They're starting to do live, not really like YouTube channels up for lessons and stuff. It's kind of hard to find somebody to teach it if you're not out in Texas or Oklahoma or somewhere. It's on this East Coast. We have really great riders, but there's fewer of them, and it's harder to get knowledge, I guess. So I am learning that. So how I see these elite guys walk around with cameraman and all this stuff, I'm starting to see it in that industry. So, we've been talking about that. If she gets on the front end of that, it can get like in the front of it. It might be a good career for her, but just got to make sure she's still just 15 years old and make sure that's where she's headed and what she wants to do. So she's wanting to go to college with it, and they give a lot of scholarships, just like fishing for rodeo.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's like you mentioned too, I'm not a dad. You both are, obviously, but like one sitting on a gold mine, I feel like with that would be an opportunity. But at the same point in time, she's only 15. Like, that's probably a little scary too as a dad, trying
it's
to get
scary to invest what we're investing, and maybe she changes her mind. So I just want her to be happy, but she's still young. But at the same time, I wish somebody had directed me at that age instead of me running wild like I did.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, that's what they talk about, mentors being that important.
Yeah, I agree.
Which, I guess, speaking of that, for you, I guess that age growing up and getting going through the fishing ranks, who was your mentor?
My dad. He kept me in the woods and on the lake, and we were when I growing up her age, we didn't have no money. I was pond fishing, flat bottom fishing from the bank a lot. I mean, I just had the bug. It came kind of like a natural deal for me, but I never had a boat till I was in my 30s. It was my own. I could say, hey, I'm going fishing. I didn't have to ask if I could borrow something. So these kids nowadays, like these young guys on the elites, can you imagine? I mean, if I'd had those opportunities, they are blessed, and they are way more blessed than what they know. I would give anything to have that opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's a great segue. You're coming from that. So what leads this to you being one of the more well-known, if not one of the best offshore guys that's as far away from the bank as he can?
It's a crazy thing. When I was a kid and we did have, I think about 1986, 1987, Daddy bought a 201 Pro Stratus. I'll never forget it. And we started fishing, and he loved offshore. And I begged him to take me to the bank so I could throw at something I could see. And it kind of reversed. But as time went on, I wanted to be offshore. And there was a day that I hated it. But once I figured out how to do the offshore game, And for so long, we were triangulating before GPSs and all this stuff. You had those spots to yourself. It was a lot more fun not having competition right next door. You know what I'm saying? But now everybody's doing it. But I just can't seem to shake the fact that's where I want to be. The bank is the least crowded place now. Seems like.
It definitely seems that way. More and more people around the country, elites are not just, even your local guys, regional guys. It seems to be the trend is more and more people getting offshore. I mean, you just said it. I've heard Hackney say it. I've heard Swindle say it. I've heard a bunch of these guys that are like, yeah, we definitely see that, but we're loving it because it's more bank for us.
That's a fact. But the problem is the bulk majority of the fish are still offshore. And, I kept thinking for years here at home on Chickamauga, because the pressure was so strong offshore. I was like, guys, they're coming back to you. They're coming back to you, but they're still not winning on the bank. So the fish are still there. And now we're getting more tools and more options to chase the ones even offshore that we never chased. Like this, with live, we're able to see where they're set up and what they're doing. And in places we would never have looked for them. That's the only downfall to live, is they have no place to hide anymore.
Yeah.
So you don't foresee that ever swinging, like these fish, more and more pressure out there? You think they're just going to get either harder to catch, or they're not going to transition and move to the bank?
Until the bait and the food that they eat goes to the bank, they're not going either. They got to have a food supply.
That's a really good point, actually. I haven't heard anyone bring up that point specifically. If you
go to the bank, you're on a stretch of bank, you're either going to eat brim or crawfish, and a bait fish comes by every now and then, but you're out there, you just open your mouth and they give one good swat of the gills and they'll get a whole mouthful of that bait, So until something with a food source changes, they're not going anywhere. They're just going to get smarter, harder to catch. We're going through what Japan went through years ago. That's why all these little small baits and all this cool stuff everybody's seeing coming from Japan is because those fish have been pressured like we're pressuring ours now.
Oh, yeah. Like the whole, what you call it, BFS trend and things like that. The whole rave of guys trying to see what the heck Kyoya is throwing, things like that. Yeah.
But it's because those fish over there have been pressured so long. They're so much more educated on pressured bass than we are. They're teaching us. Those guys are teaching us what it takes to catch them. I mean, like that dice deal. I mean, look at that thing. Like 5 years ago, somebody showed me that thing. I was like, "You're crazy! Get that thing out of here!"
And are you throwing the dice now, buddy?
I have 3 or 4 of them actually. Yeah. So,
nice.
But I'm not caught one on one yet. But I can remember we were at Fork and Taku has stayed at my house before. I considered him a friend, and he walked up to my boat and said, "Look at my new toy." Throw me one of those dice in the boat. I was like, "Can I keep?" And he about tackled me out of the boat. Said, "No, you cannot." I tried hard to get it from him, and I caught myself 5 or 6 years ago starting to study JDM tackle, and that was just I was a big guy. I was a big bait guy. If it wasn't the size of my tennis shoe, I didn't care about it. I was a 1 ounce trap, biggest plug I could find. I wanted the big stuff. So I am catching myself trending in that direction. And I'm telling you, because I'm going in that direction, I've been suffering the last few years. But if I don't suffer now, I'm going to suffer later. So I'm trying to get caught back up with what I missed in the last few years.
You think you're saying you're suffering because you're going through an adjustment period of trying to learn that new deal?
100%. And it's not just baits, it's technology, it's the forward live sonars, it's the perspectives, it's the whole gamut. There is a lot changing, and it's changing so fast. And I knew about it 4 years ago, and I got a piece of it, but I didn't realize how big it was going to be. And I should have, because I was one of the guys that, when the 360 come out, I kind of sniggered at it a little bit. And now that I had it, several years ago and was using it to win a lot of money, I'm like, man, I should have been on the front edge of this other too. But when you make your alliance with one manufacturer and they get behind too, it kind of puts you behind, which is what's going on with a lot of us. You line yourself with a guy that's not in the front, so that's how come you see all of us running different brands. We can't get that far behind. It moves too fast. This target is moving on a tilt-a-whirl, and you don't know which direction it's going rapidly.
Yeah. Well, and we keep hearing about rumors of something brand new coming. It's almost like scary to think, well, what the heck else could we even be trying to implement? And that's a whole rabbit hole that we've honestly been trying to avoid as best as we can on this show, because I think everyone's just kind of like sick of hearing about the talk, which is why honestly why I love chatting with you about it, because when it comes to what I call the real age of finding fish offshore with side imaging, mapping, things like that, I think you're one of the best on tour that does it from a process standpoint of putting in the time. And I think regardless of where you guys went, it seemed like you could find fish offshore.
And that's the deal. Down now, those guys are just putting their trolling motor down and trolling until they find them and catch them, and that's hard to compete with. I'm telling you, those guys have no history or they don't know to go flip a jig or throw a swim bait at a school of the shad spawn. I mean, they're just putting it down, looking for that single fish in order to catch it. And I'm telling you, they're geniuses. I mean, everybody's giving them a hard time, but I'm telling you, it's not a bad thing. It's just a different thing than what we've all grew up doing. So I'm not against it. I'm just telling you that if I ever figure it out like they've got it figured out and I can put it where I've always found fish, I know I can get back to the top. I have got to be able to make them bite as good as them, though. That's the problem. You can find them. You still got to make them bite.
So you think the bait, let's call it the bait race, because everyone's calling it the technology arms race. You think the bait race is one that people aren't talking about as much?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to, as much pressure as they're getting now, it's going to have to be really, really, really realistic and really finessey at some point. When you go up north, it's a different animal. Those guys don't get to eat as much as, the smallmouth and stuff. I swear Ray Charles could throw a tennis shoe out there and they're going to bite it. I mean, it's just different. But you get on the Tennessee River and you got gizzard, shad, striped bass, buffalo, car. I mean, you got all this stuff. It looks just like a bass swimming. It's a whole nother animal. You got a spotted bass lake, and 90% of everything that's suspended, it's the right size as a bass, and it's pretty. I'm not saying easy. It's just easier.
Yeah.
You don't have the targets. You get on these lakes, Florida lakes, Tennessee River. I mean, any of the coastal rivers. You get on that stuff. There's so much more trash fish, let's call it, that looks a lot like a bass. You make a lot of wasted casts, but these guys are really good at it. Don't make those wasted casts I'm making. That's why I say it's just time on the water. And I've signed up for more events this year. I fished more since January than I fished in the last 2 years at this point. So put together. So I'm trying to catch up, but my bank account can't stand another year like last year, and it's starting off rough this year.
Do you think with that, is that why maybe that this whole glide bait movement is becoming more and more popular from, we were talking about baits that are more realistic? You think that could be a reason why it seemed like people every tournament have a big bait on deck?
And it shows you fish. Sometimes you're not always a catcher, but it'll show you fish you didn't know were there. Even if it's a fish under a dock you couldn't get to pull out, and you throw the glide down and it comes out and looks at it, then you know it's there and you start trying to figure out what to do to catch it. I mean, and I'm on the tail end of it, guys. I'm telling you, I'm way behind. I've always targeted numbers of fish instead of singles, and these guys are chasing me down with these singles.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of these rogue fish, we've talked about with multiple different people, like you have a school of fish. I'll give the credit here to our pal Benjamin Nowak, who talked about it with smallmouth, where you have a school of 3-4 pounders, and then 100 yards off to the right, you got 1-6. That's by its lonesome. That's what those guys seem to be targeting and isolating, is those apex fish.
All you got to have is 5 fish at the end of the day, and they got to be the 5 big ones. And I went through a school of fish, all my life. I find a school of fish offshore, might go through 20 and catch a 6-pounder randomly. They were all 4-pounders and a random 6-pounder. Those guys are targeting that 6-pounder before I can ever even bite an eye. I mean, guys, I'm telling you, you can find the biggest fish in the school with your scope. I mean, I'm learning. You can watch a bait fathers with the scope and watch minnows flare out, and then watch the fish underneath them come up. Sometimes you can't even see fish under a school of bait, and you throw in there and it spreads the minnows out, and then all of a sudden you see 20 fish sitting under it. I seen it happen at St. John. I scoped 4 or 5 fish I weighed in at St. John's. Not on trees. I'm talking about out in the middle of nothing. So it has a place everywhere we go.
That is insane. Yeah, I mean, we saw it with Sabine, with Taku. They'll find a way. That's for dang sure. But I think especially for kids or people that are trying to learn, especially the offshore game, you can't just start getting into fishing, go from pond fishing to hopping on a boat and start finding these fish with live. I mean, you can certainly try, but I feel like, and I'm curious if you'll agree with me here, if your goal is to learn and be a better angler and have longevity, I think you have to go through the process of learning how to understand mapping, side imaging, finding those fish that way before you jump straight to trying to use forward facing sonar. Would you agree with that?
I'm probably gonna get shot for this, but no, I think you could put your boat in at the boat ramp, put the trolling motor down, never crank your big motor, and ride idle. I mean, actually troll around and look for isolated fish.
Dang.
I mean, think about it. Where's the best place to look for all the fish? Whatever boat ramp everybody has their tournaments out of, that's where all the fish are coming to. So you put your boat in, put the trolling motor down, you're gonna find fish that was caught 3 days ago and start catching them again. It's changed, guys. It's changing. It's changing fast. I don't know what the answer is or where the outcome is going, but it's different. I still can't put my boat in and do that, but I see some of our competition do it.
And that's why you're seeing multiple live transducers on boats, because they have more ability to see all around the boat than just forward.
That's right. I think the next thing is going to be live 360, and then you're going to be able to see everything.
Yeah.
How you target it, I don't know, but that's probably the next thing.
Yeah. I hate talking about this because
I didn't know we were going here either. And you
Yeah,
are the first guys that I've opened up about it. So, but I'm not bashing it, and I'm not jumping on board with it. I'm just saying if it's a tool, I've got to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, like I completely agree. Like, and that's one thing that we try to stress is when it does come up, like we've tried to avoid the forward facing talk because it's been beaten to a pulp, and we want to get back to, just fishing is there's way more to it than just tournament fishing. Like there is the fun to it. There is, if you decide you don't want it, then there's way more ways to find these fish and learn about them than through live technology. But
what everybody wants to do is catch. They don't want to go fishing. They want to go catching.
Right.
That's the thing. And my daughter's part of that deal. She was a natural fisherman, but she couldn't catch enough. She didn't like how I did it, so she went to horsing. So I'm serious. I mean, like, people want to catch them. I talk to people all the time. Says I want to go saltwater fishing because I'm gonna catch something. They don't care what it is. They want to catch something.
Yeah.
But that thing, crappie fishing. I mean, brim fishing. I mean, we're seeing what it'll do with perspective. I mean, it has opened up a whole nother realm of people, and I think that's what's attracting these younger guys. They're catching them.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think on that point, that's one thing where it's like, if it helps you catch more, like that's one of the arguments is, people that are against it's like, well, it helps you catch more fish, then why are you so against it? But also, like, on the flip side, going back to your earlier point is, there's some people that seem to want to go after anglers for this arms race and technology. And that's one thing where we were trying to stress is you can't blame any single angler for this. If you want to blame somebody, blame the tech companies that made it or blame the trails that allow it. At the end of the day, you guys are doing the best that you possibly can to make a living. That's the end of the story.
What it
you
is.
can't put this.
Yeah, regardless what everybody thinks, ain't nobody knocking my door down to pay my bills. I have to catch fish, and I'm not independently wealthy. We don't have a business. It's all on what I catch. And I'm telling you, I have to catch back up because these guys are killing me.
It's a crazy time in bass fishing.
But back to my offshore deal, I learned how to read maps, and I was actually digging into these maps and finding maps that other people didn't have. So, I mean, like, my technology was just the technology ahead of them. I was just doing it a different way,
Yeah. So are you talking about like actual like paper maps, or are you talking about stuff online?
Yeah, like Tennessee River, they actually hired engineers and architects. All these people come in and they'd actually map out these lakes in the 1930s. So if back in the old days, we could roll up in Chattanooga and they had a map store and you go in there and get underwater contours, and they'd show you how many trees were on a fence row and how big the tree was. Whether it was a 36-inch oak tree at the corner. I mean, like, it was very, very detailed. And, I didn't used to talk about it, but it's so blowed up now that, I made a good living off of springs on the Tennessee River for years. And now everybody talks about springs, where it was kind of a secret for many, many years. So, and those maps would show some of those, and that's how we found them. And mapping technology like, C-Map, Navionics, and Garmin's, all that stuff, they weren't nowhere near what the paper maps were. So we were finding everything on paper maps and going out and finding it with the electronics, depth finder, side imaging, down imaging. And that's how we made all this offshore still stuff work. And then everything's just caught up. I mean, you got live. I'm sitting here looking at a sea map on my low ranch right now. I mean, and it has so many contours and everything. It's just easy. Well, you have a road map to catch fish if you have the money to buy it. And that's the other thing is the cost of this stuff. The younger guys that don't have somebody helping them, I mean, how do they afford to catch up with us? I don't understand it.
Yeah, it's a very, very tall task.
The mapping technology is just as advanced as what the forward-facing sonar is if you really look at it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to say it's got to be neck and neck, if not a close, very, very close second of the advancement of how many more fish are being caught and found is the advancement of mapping.
And then you got the shaded relief. It'll show you contours that aren't really even showing up on the contour lines. I mean, you're going to get, I think one of mine's the shaded relief. I can't remember what they call it. It shows the hard spots on the lake. I mean, dude, I highlight every hard spot on the lake before I go. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, we're really on the cutting edge. I mean, it's changing so fast in the last, since I went professional, it's changed that much in the last 8 years.
Yeah, I mean, what's crazy too is that, I mean, in the cliche is the fishing industry is always 10 years behind everything else. Cause I mean, for hunters, like that whole contour, shaded relief, hard spots, things like that has always been a thing, especially for guys out west that are, elk hunting and things like that. Now they're like, oh, hey, we should probably bring that over to the topographic maps for lakes. So it's only about time. But yeah, like what else is next? Like that's, I guess the big question. But we could go down that soapbox for a whole other 10 hours.
Even like the hydro wave. We were trying to call them in 12 years ago. I mean, I think started out with something. I mean, I can almost remember my team fish partner at home. His name is James. He was always ahead on the technology, ahead of me. He didn't care what it cost. If it was something new, he's gonna get it. I remember this white box we had, and we hung this little speaker off the side of the boat. I'm talking 15, 18 years ago, and it was a Biosonics, I think is what they called it before Hydrowave took it. But I mean, it was the coolest thing ever. And I mean, like, sound like somebody down there splashing bucket against the bottom of the boat, but it seemed to work. So we've tried a little bit of everything, but it's I don't know where it stops. I don't know if it will stop.
Yeah, I don't think it can. But
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's just the general curiosity of an angler. You got to try everything. And with that, we have a question here from a fellow Gross. Yeah, saying, ask you about Calvin.
I'm not believing she's actually done this. Really, like she's probably sitting there looking at me, waiting on me to answer this. But my family needed another animal, like we need another hole in the head. And a good friend of ours in the horse business, I rolled up to a horse show one day and he's smiling like I ain't never seen him smile. I was like, what's he so happy about? Well, continue on a few minutes. And a few minutes later, my wife and daughter walk up with another dog and his name is Calvin. And I was like, not happening. Send it back. Go whatever. Long story short, I lost. We have a dog named Calvin now. And they talk to Calvin like it's a human being, and it drives me nuts. I can't remember. Sweet, darling, baby, cakes, Calvin, darling. I'm like, oh, my God. He's a good-looking dog, but I feel like he's got more attention than I get now.
Yeah, that's how it works, man.
Terrible.
I mean, shoot, before I met my now wife, she was never a cat person. And I'm not the biggest cat person, but with our situation, we couldn't get a dog because I travel so much and I don't trust her to train the thing because she would let her dog at home like eat out of the garbage. So because I traveled so much, she was home alone. So we ended up settling. She got a cat, and now every time she get home, the cat gets attention first before I even get a hello. So I understand how you feel. Yeah. Andy, you're next, bud. You live with three girls. You have no say anymore.
Oh, we have a cat, and Amanda is the full like on person about animals, and she said no more cats and no dogs. So I'm good for now.
What?
Yeah, she can only love one animal at a time.
Well, that's because she just had another kid. Just wait.
Yeah, had another kid. No, this is before like our little cat came before both kids, and she was like, I will not have another cat or dog until this one. She's like, I don't have enough love to give so many things. I'm like, fair enough.
Well, I promise you, my wife's giving love out to like 3 cats, 3 dogs, and 43 horses. It feels like so. I have very little left over when I come home.
So you basically got the gross family petting zoo, I guess, going on.
It's terrible. The barn was the worst thing we ever did because now we need barn cats, barn dogs. I mean, it just give another excuse.
Barn swallows.
Oh yeah,
yeah. That's
if
what
it
you
was
got.
daylight,
That's what
they dive bombing me. Like they literally attack you when you walk out the door.
I'm sure your girls will say
down to that.
Well, that's
you
why
get the
they're
swallows.
attacking you.
You get the
But they
swallows
want to
in your
build the
bass
nest
boat,
at the
buddy.
front door.
Well, nobody said they were smart. All right. Like,
yeah, exactly.
That's hilarious. Well, so getting back to the conversation of our show here is for something offshore. It's hard to, I feel like, find a definition of offshore because some people just throw that out there like, oh, hey, catch them, I'm offshore, or it could mean anything. We're in the Great Lakes, you could be 10 miles off, you could be 100 feet off the bank in Florida and be technically offshore. You know, what is your definition of offshore?
A good definition for me has always been a contour change, a big contour change. You know, if you're on a creek channel or a river channel or a hump in the middle of a bay, I mean, I just want to see the contour change for me to say I'm offshore, I guess. If I'm on a grass line that's 100 yards offshore, I don't really consider it offshore, but it's I'm really looking for that contour change where the schools, that was what the deal was with offshore. That was the big draw. You caught schools offshore. I mean, I remember catching in a 3-hour little jackpot tournament. I mean, I've caught as many as 40 fish over 4 pounds in an hour. I mean, that's what gets you offshore. That's what gets you fired up. But those schools have busted up, moved around, smaller. Fishing, as I know it, is changing, and it's changing rapidly. But it's not just the live; it's just the pressure. There's more people in fishing now than I ever thought that I would ever see, and it's a cool thing. High school fishing, college fishing, the weekend anglers. How many times can you go to the boat ramp around y'all's house on a weekday and find it empty?
There was 4 boats out today on Erie.
That's pretty sweet, but it must have been blowing.
No, it was foggy and rainy.
Oh, but I'm telling you, here, like Chickamauga, Gunnersville on a Tuesday afternoon at
it's probably
2:30, can't find a parking place, and that's every day of the week, even in the wintertime.
That's insane.
But
we're a little bit more fortunate we're a little bit more fortunate in the north right now where it's 20 boats on the lake is packed considered.
Yeah, people care about walleye. Walleye opens tonight at midnight, so I'm sure that's why the parking lot was empty. So,
well, just so you guys know, we're envious of y'all and how many fish y'all have up there and how aggressive they are. It is. Everybody asks me, home's home. Chickamauga Lake's home. Gunnersville's home. But when I want to go catch fish and have a really good time fun fishing, I would pick up north. I mean, it's really fun.
It seems to be the general consensus for about every pro. It seems like
that's because we enjoy catching them. That's the whole deal.
Yeah.
We enjoy catching them, and you can go up there and catch fish. You may not catch enough. Like I can't tell you before I started doing some things different at Lake Champlain, I'd catch fish all day long, but I'd have 13 pounds, good enough for 75th place.
Yeah.
And when I finally learned how to catch a few largemouth to mix in, I started creeping up, and now here we are live, and they're running around catching 5 and 6 pounds of smallmouth now. So it's I love it up north. Yeah. I mean, you guys, I wish I had a place up there.
You can just sell a few horses.
Yeah, sell a few horses and you'll make it.
Yeah.
That might not go over too well, but
no, we've tried that. My wife said she'd like to have a new car. I said, we can sell this horse, do this, and my daughter's fighting it every time you turn around. So that's the thing about a horse deal too. You got to keep 2 to keep 1 running because there's always something wrong.
At least that's not bass boats. At least you can only have 1 bass boat. At least for now.
This is true.
Soon you have to have a practice bass boat and then a tournament bass boat.
I've tried to get there, and every time I get there, something winds up messing that up till a horse comes along.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, so with that, getting back to the talking about, you think like a big contour change is how you define offshore. For you, for like a cadence and practice of let's talk about a new fishery, and you're gonna go out, exploring, searching, graphing. Like, what is your cadence of where are you going to start, and where would you work from there? If that makes any sense, of where you're going to start looking, and then how do you prioritize? Like, what is your priority list of? Are you looking more for fish, or are you looking more for cover in practice per se?
Well, let's just use it like kind of like right now, this time of year. I'm looking for where they're spawn, or where they're going to spawn, or where they have spawned, and I'm looking out in front of it. And you're going to find places halfway out, and you're going to find places all the way out, and you need to be prepared for both, because seasonal changes. Just like we got another moon right now, that moon, there'll be another wave of fish pull up. So I'm trying to find a place that would have fish coming and going. If you find a place there's pre-spawn fish and there's a place there's post-spawn fish using together, that is the best place. And that place is always kind of halfway out. It's never all the way out. So when I start looking right now, I'm looking at the first major contour change off the bank, and then I'll work my way from there out instead of there in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely does.
And then you find like a creek channel or a ditch or a drain, however you want to describe it. That's their highway. That's their interstate that we actually communicate, or commute on. So they're using it the same way. So then I'll start backing out that travel corridor, trying to find something else they'll hold on, whether it's a brush pile or a hard spot or a shell bed or a creek turn or a dip. I mean, there's so many things. And as the anglers get better and these maps get better, you have to start looking for stuff that's not on the map and is not obvious. That's the biggest key. Now you have to spend more time looking than you used to, because there's more people looking at the obvious stuff.
Yeah. Well, so with that, like, there's always the stories of guys like, oh, I found fish here in practice and they're gone now. So for you anyway, will you prioritize looking for fish versus cover, or how does that rank for you in practice?
I'm looking for fish first. The good thing is I'm 90% of the time I'm able to see them on side image, and I don't have to stand up and use the. I don't have lives off of my boat tail. I'll go ahead and tell you that. I'm just using side imaging. I thought about going down that path, but I'm going to stick with what I know really well for right now, and still just use side imaging and my down imaging and 2D sonar. But I'm looking for fish. I'm looking for where they're congregating, because there don't have to be cover for post spawn fish to hang out. It don't have to be a hard spot even. It can just be where they want to be. You know what I'm saying? So you're looking for fish this time of year. Now, if I'm looking pre-spawn, I'm looking for a hard spot or brush pile, something like that. But this time of year, when we're looking into the post spawn in our area, post spawn's right on it, right here at us. So I'm looking for fish and figure out where they're piling up.
That makes sense. How would you know, or what's your best judgment on how to tell if an area will be consistent or not?
It needs to have deep water fairly close and the spawning area between it and the deep water. I mean, that's pretty much the gist of it. I mean, if I was teaching somebody tomorrow, I'd say figure out where they're spawning and figure out where they're going. And they're going to the current, and they're going to where the bait is and the food source. So I'm looking at something in between. And what I'm learning a lot is let's just say a community hole. I mean, everybody has a community hole on their lake, and it's always been great. But it's like that community hole, and it gets lots of pressure. Once it gets pressure for a few days, and a tournament rolls in, they'll move. They may move 100 yards, 200 yards, or maybe a quarter of a mile. But if you can relocate them, that's the goal.
Yeah. So
And
for
they
you
do
to kind
move.
of wrap, what's that?
I said, and they do move with pressure.
Oh yeah, yeah, 1000%. So with that, just to kind of wrap up the offshore talk, is I guess for you, if you had a preference or a favorite of what you'd rather fish offshore, whether it be rock pile, timber, grass, like what, or ledge, what's your preference?
My preference is a slick spot where nobody thinks there's any fish and they actually hang on to it. That's what I'm looking for every time I go. I don't always find it, but when I find it, it makes, I mean, it's a top 10 if I find it. And some of my guys, some of my peers that I fish with, there's like, dude, you ain't done nothing but idle the whole time. Well, I'm looking for that magic spot, and I don't find it every time. But if I do find it, it equals a top 20, you know? So I'm always looking for something a little camouflage, to be honest with you. I mean, a grass edge or a clump or a hole or something like that is always good, but everybody finds that. I have to now look for something that everybody else is missing.
And that's a tall task. What are the one
Very
guy's got now?
Very tall.
Andy, we've definitely talked about this, and because I've heard you actually say that exact thing before, buddy, and that's one thing that's driven my mind crazy in the past. I'm an offshore guy, but my big hindrance to me right now is I'm still stuck in a freaking kayak. So me trying to find the needle in a haystack is tenfold because
That's hard. So if you want me to make it a little easier, if I was in a kayak and I was looking, I'm going to the main spots, like two ditches intersect or a point where a downriver point where a creek channel runs in. I'm looking for those obvious places at that point if I don't have the time to do what we're trying to do now. So I'm looking at a high spot. If you're coming down a creek ledge and you got a high spot it's even as shallow as 5 feet, if you find that 5 foot place, that 5 foot place first thing in the morning is where they're going to all be. And then they're going to gradually move on out to a deeper spot. When I won Pickwick, my first actual big tour win FLW, I caught them on the eelgrass clumps with a hair jig. That was a shallow bar. I mean, it was shallower than they should have been, but they were up there feeding on a shad spawn, and it would last till about 10, 30, 11 o'clock, and then they just move out to the edge 100 yards behind me, and I'd just relocate them, and I'd do it again. I mean, it was really pretty cool.
So with that shad spawn, then is what you're saying is like, for some it might seem like it'll die, but it's just because those fish have moved somewhere, where they're still gonna be feeding. It's just
but the shad spawn, when the shad spawn in a low light deal, so once the sun gets up and high, they'll actually quit the spawning, and the fish will slow down and actually quit feeding for a little while, but then they'll fire again midday. Is really, I mean, I'm not saying at 12 o'clock on the nose, but sometime at the next that 11 to 1 o'clock, I'll find them again feeding somewhere usually.
That's pretty wicked.
And then you're going to catch them again in the evening. Of course, usually the next time they feed really well on that shad spawn is after we're off the water. But it's that sun setting till it gets dark is a really good time for the shad spawn also.
Okay. That's one thing in the north. Yeah. And so that is one thing that's pretty interesting about the north is we don't have like the big glorious shad spawns that the south gets. Yeah. We do get one. It's very subtle, and people that know what happens up here, but it's usually it's never in the morning or anything like that. It's like if you're a night fisherman, you understand what the shad spawn is. Yeah. But like we don't get that crazy. And that's the one thing I'll say that I absolutely love about the south is the shad spawn is so much freaking fun.
It is fun.
I think people got to see that the Harris chain, just how fun that was. First couple hours alive.
Yeah, I completely missed it. I mean, like, dude, that hurt my feelings so bad. Like, that's another problem you have when you've won somewhere and you have anticipations on fish being somewhere, and you get a little glimpse of hope. Like, I catch one 5-pounder on a spot and don't get another bite, and I think, well, they're coming, and they don't ever come. It's rough.
Yeah. Well, switching gears a little bit, this is a little Lure Lab-esque here, Andy. So if we can kind of get a little nerdy with this, but lipless crankbaits, man. I don't know what it is, but I feel like it's still a kind of, I'd say jerkbaits have been pretty dialed in the past couple of years, but I feel like a trap is still one of those up in the air questions when we talked about like setups and things like that people are still kind of conversing around. I think the evolution of forward facing sonar really quieted that conversation that was ramping up there for a while. And I would consider you, at least in my mind, one of the best trap fishermen that's on tour. And you got like you and a Brian Schmidt, and I know there's a few more. We could probably throw like a Ray Hanselman or something like that in there. But I guess for you, like for a lipless, you always got one tied on like year round?
I always got one tied on. I got some old school stuff I still throw, but yeah, the Ruka Shad, I heard you say something about it earlier, but every trap type bait that I throw has its own purpose. There's some I slow roll, there's some I yo-yo, there's some that I'll just burn and stop, and it's a search bait for me. And then it becomes, once you find them, you can blow through them and catch a lot of them really fast, and then I usually have to slow back down and catch them with something else. But typically I like it for a search bait, just to find out if I can get an aggressive fish to bite, and if that fish is there, there's usually some more around it.
Now, with that, like from regards to like a bait selection of what you're starting with, like, do you have a go-to, like something that's either louder, that's quieter? Like, do you have like a process of selection for different traps?
Yes, I typically like the Aruka shad if it's a little bit of a pre-spawn deal. It's a really fast fall, and I can yo-yo it. But if I get on a hard spot, I like it. And then I use some booyahs. I actually use the original rattle trap than the 1 ounce. I throw some bigger stuff than most do, and I throw some stuff that you can't get anymore. But I buy as many as I can find, often as I can, and I'm running thin, so I'm having to look for something new. And nobody's really into that market right now. Nobody's wanting to come out with a new rattle bait or anything if it don't have something to do with some of this other stuff we've talked about. The bait deal is changing. I mean, that's another thing I'm seeing. There's just not a lot of innovative stuff in that, and some of the stuff that I like, I'm having to buy old stuff because nothing new's coming out.
Damn, that's crazy. With that, are you switching anything up like with those baits? Like in regards, like, do you have like a go-to treble that you like to put on with these? Like I know with the Arukus, the one that when I first bought one a couple of years ago, was I noticed how it had a bigger treble up front and smaller treble in the back. Are you kind of keeping that same format, or are you changing things up?
Well, because of how I fish one, and it's been a conversation of others, so I will talk about it. But I go to a size 2 on my Rukas on the front and back, and I put an owner needlepoint. I mean, that's my favorite. The ST36 is my favorite hook. So I put it on every one of my baits before I throw them. But I'm the guy that uses a stiffer rod. I use heavier line, and when I get a hook up, I burn them to the boat pretty much and try to do my best to boat flip them and not try to grab them. But the rattle bait style is really notorious for losing fish. We were at Gunnersville a few years ago, and Davey Hite and the camera girl was right beside me, and I lost probably 25 pounds of fish in the first hour on that bait. I sat down, redid it, tied new hooks, went to a bigger hook. I did everything, stood back up, and lost them again. And I can tell when they bite if I've got a chance of getting them in or if I'm going to be in trouble. And I'm usually 9 times out of 10, I can tell you if I'm fixing to lose the fish. And it's just one of those deals. It hurts. It hurts my heart, and I swear sometimes I'm never going to throw it again. But it's still the best bait that I can catch them in a hurry and find them in a hurry on those, post spawn, pre spawn deals.
Now, I know you said you like the ST36 needle points. Did you experiment with like EWG hook trebles with it before settling on a round bend?
Yes.
With the traps. Why did you end up choosing the round bend over an EWG?
I just like the point presentation. It's just so sticky. Yeah. The EWGs had their place in my life, but the closest thing to EWG owner has, and I'm an owner hook guy, so they have this one, and I can't remember the degree, but the degrees are off. They're not equally proportioned. Their short shank type hook has got 2 like we would know, but 1 over here. So there's a flat spot in the back, and I'm getting to where I really like that hook. I can get it to play better in the grass. It'll tuck up under the bait and not have so many points hitting the grass to foul it. But the round bend's still what I go back to just because it holds them so well.
I like it.
Have you, being an owner guy, have you played around at all with that, the STX, was it 38, the Zoe wires?
Yes.
Are you a fan of them?
Stout. Yeah, it's a very stout hook. I've got them right here. Actually, I had them beside me. I just put them up. But yes, I'm still leaning towards the black nickel 36 round bend needlepoint. Me now, if I've got a braided braided line, heavier bait, burning them in treble hook press like I would a jointed bait over the top of grass or something, then I will use that hook to keep it from bending because it's a good hook. It's a really good hook. I'm just old school. If you've seen some of the stuff I throw that you can't even buy anymore, you say, "Oh, he really is old school." But once I get something that I like, I stick with it because I just feel it better. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, when you got confidence, you got confidence. I think that's the age old cliche with fishing is if it's working for you, don't change anything because that's the last thing you want to do. But yeah, I only bring that up because I was curious actually. Andy and I are big owner guys as well, and we'd found, it was last year, 2 years ago, that Zoe wire, and I'd bought some, and after making my hands bleed just getting them out of the package, I'm like, I got to figure out what's the best application for these things because they are sticky.
They are sticky, but that Zoe wire deal is still The Zowire is excellent. I wish they had them on this round bend. We just don't have that option yet. But I'm leaning towards the round bend more than I am that style because I have a wider gap. If you've ever noticed, even with the that Zowire hook, if you'll notice between the shank of the hook and the point is a little bit tight, where a round bend's further away from it. And typically, if I use a bigger alt hook, the diameter of the round bend hook is smaller, so I feel like the penetration is better. When I'm running 2s, 1s, and even 1/0s, when you get into that Zowire, the diameter of it for the penetration deal gets big.
Yeah. Well, I noticed with the way, I mean, people have talked about this a bunch, and I've heard you talk about it a decent amount, and how you reel fish in, like where you don't have the guys that are running circles around the boat, doing figure eights with the rod, where you're just point and reel. You found that works better?
Well, here's the deal. When you have a net guy, it's the best way. And I've had to learn a little bit. I've had to slow down a little bit more than what I want to, because when I started fishing, I was team fishing. So I had a guy standing there with a net, and I was dragging them as hard as I could to keep them from jumping or splashing. But I have noticed that if I get back here and I have the rod fighting the fish, which is what we're supposed to do, I'm not disagreeing, and I'm already bound up back here and the fish jump, and I'm talking about good fish. I grew up fishing for 6, 7, 8, 9 pounders, and you have one jump and it gets any slack, you lose it, right? So if I'm back here, I can't do nothing but spade the reel up or lean further back, and a fat boy like me don't do that. So I keep the rod down and keep pressure on the fish, and if it jumps and does something I'm not expecting, I've got all this room to catch the slack up. You follow me?
Okay. So when it comes up to jump, kind of almost like the reverse of tarpon fishing, or when tarpon jump, you lean your rod forward, where this one, if they jump, you're leaning backward.
Yes. I'm not just leaning. I'm gaining all that slack up. And I'm not telling you it's perfect, but it's a better ratio to get them in the boat than what I have been. And you're using, and again, and we're not talking about it much, but when you say me throwing an Aruka Shad, it's a 3/4 ounce or 1 ounce. So I'm throwing bigger baits that's easier to throw than a 1/2 ounce. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A 1/2 ounce, I fish it a little different. You just don't see me throw it much. I don't throw it a lot. So when I'm using those big baits, they got so much leverage and so much weight to move around and throw the hook. I do everything I can to keep them coming. I'm 17-pound test, heavy action rod, 7-to-1, and if I can ski them, I'll ski them. And I learned it with a deep plug. We were throwing DD22s on mono, and them son of guns would jump, and our lines still be underwater 4 feet before they ever jump. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So I got tired of losing them.
Big old rubber band.
I went to fluorocarbon line before most people did, and I went to flipping stick with a big crankbait. And the first time they come up to the surface, I opened their mouth with a daggum reel, and I skied them to the boat. Everybody I know was throwing 5-to-1s and fiberglass rods with deep plug, and I was the first one I knew of to do a flipping stick, fluorocarbon, and a fast speed reel. I wanted them in the boat. I didn't play fish, and it's just kind of transition to everything I do.
Get your butt in here.
Dude, I'm telling you, I've had 6-pounders with their mouths open this wide, just filling them full of water because they can't jump.
Yeah, they're just
That's
stuck.
what I'm after.
Yeah,
and every now and then, like those days whenever Davey had to watch me lose them all, I catch myself back here because I set the hook and I was trying to catch up, and by the time I get caught up, it jumps and spits it. If I'd have had my rod where it's supposed to be, I wouldn't have lost them. But there has to be some give. I got into some of that deal where I lost them that year. I lost a lot of fish on that bait that year, and I think it was because I was using very low stretch fluoro where I had always been using a high stretch fluoro.
Yeah, which is the P label, the blue label P line, right? The super soft.
But no, that's actually the tactical is the stretchy, and the blue label is the stiff.
Huh.
Or it's not stiff, less stretch. Yeah. But I called Rick Clun when I left Fort because I lost 35 pounds a day 2 days in a row out there on that thing. And I called Rick Clun. I was like, Rick, I need help. He's like, what can I help you with? I was like, I'm losing everything I touch on a treble hook, and I never used to. And he's like, go to mono. And then as soon as he said go to mono, I knew what I did. I'd switch lines. I went from the stretchy line to the less stretch, and it was like instantly. I told Rick, I said, I can't go to mono, but I know what I did wrong. And that's how we ended the conversation. And I did. I mean, now I make sure and put a different color label on there when I know which reel's got the stretchy on it. So that was just a hard lesson. That was an expensive lesson. Like I missed probably 2 or 3 top 10s last year or year before last. I remember because I did not pay attention. And You can't miss a detail like that at this level.
That's crazy. I can't imagine that gut wrenching feeling, especially when you're talking 35 pounds. That's
Yeah, you ought to see my wife's eyes when I walk in the door and tell her I know what I did wrong. She's like, you should have figured that out before you did it. You know. So,
Hard lesson.
Yeah.
but that's
Well,
what I
thanks
tell
for that.
everybody. I'm having a lot of hard lessons late in my life. I just started late. Like, I'm not much younger than Davey and Kevin and all these guys that are retiring. And I'm like, dang, I wish I'd have started earlier, but I didn't. And I'm having to really make hay while I can. And I've been on the losing end of that lately.
Well, I got confidence you'll catch up. I mean, it's
trying.
obvious you got the drive, man. And the skill's obviously there. So I got faith.
Well, thank you. That means a lot because sometimes I doubt myself.
Well, I feel like the imposter syndrome is a good thing amongst athletes and pros. I think it keeps them grounded and it keeps them going. Where it's if you start thinking that you're all that, that's when you start to slack. Where I think having self doubt isn't like people talk about not having self doubt and things like that. I think it's good to have a healthy amount of self doubt because it keeps you pushing if you take it the right way. You know what I mean? So it's.
And the way I live, we live by faith so much in the Lord, and I feel like if I take the credit for it, I don't always say that kind of stuff because He gave me the ability to do it and make the decisions when I made them, so I try to give Him as much credit as I can. And some people say, well, you're the one catching them. Well, yeah, kind of, but He's kind of directing me in life. So that's kind of where I look at it.
Heck yeah, man. Well, Andy, you got anything, whether offshore talk, Lipless talk, or anything for Buddy before we hit him with our last couple of questions?
I think we covered the basis on the trap. I guess I'd be curious what the trap like when you pick one for like yo-yoing or burning or slow rolling. Like, what is the main difference you look for in a trap to do each one of those techniques properly?
So you can take some guys 1 ounce trap and just watch the rate of fall. I count everything. We've not talked about that, but I've told a lot of people about this. I count everything. But when I cast it and I count it to the bottom a lot, and then when I stop it, I'll count it to the bottom again, and I can kind of tell which baits are falling more. And if a fish is really reacting on the fall, then I get a faster fall bait. If they're really reacting on the swim, then I'll throw the one that's got a little more vibration, a little better swim. And it's a bomb. I've kind of used it like a swim bait. I can actually throw it in different levels of water column. And again, like I told you, I was doing some forward facing at the St. John's. I caught one on a trap forward facing. I just counted it down. If I know it's 23 foot deep out there and it takes 18 seconds to get to the bottom, then I count it to 10. I'm a 10 foot deep. You know what I'm trying to say? I can control my bait like that. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I was, in raw reality, some people were talking the other day that how I used to count down swim baits and catch these fish out in front of the boat and off of the breaks where everybody catches them on a break. But the fish I noticed started suspending off the break. So let's just say the top of a hump was 20 foot deep and the creek channel all around was 35 feet. Well, the fish was suspended at 20 feet, 15 feet off the ledge in the middle of the creek. Well, I got to where I could count them down and catch those suspended fish without forward facing sonar. And that's kind of what pushed me over the edge above everybody else because I was catching those fish that everybody's catching now without seeing them back in the day.
God, that's freaking cool.
Well, I just got to figure out how to use this forward facing sonar to catch back up. I know y'all don't want to go there again. I'm just saying that I'm going to figure this thing out and figure out how to put it back into play the way I want to catch them. It's just, I'm serious. It's like learning how to walk again.
Well, I think you're not giving yourself as much credit as you should. I mean, you've been on, pre-forward facing. You were the forefront of 360 side imaging. Like you were and still are, of credit of one of the best guys when it comes to technology and how to utilize that for your game. So I'd say you have the repertoire, I should say, to figure it out. So
well,
again,
I promise I'm digging in, and I'm pretty blessed. We were at the Bassmaster Classic. And this is off subject just a little bit. We were at the Bassmaster Classic, and I'm with Impulse Lithiums this year, and some of the Impulse guys, y'all went to dinner one night, and I look around the table, and some of the best forward-facing guys in the country are sitting at the table with me. And we're talking. I'm sitting there with some other guys. I'm not going to say the names, but some older guys complaining about it. I just turned around and looked at them younger guys, and I was like, hey, y'all come down here a minute. And I started asking them questions about it, and they were actually willing to tell me some stuff. So I have a learning spirit. I just want to learn it, and I want to put the thing to work and get back to where we need to be for my sponsors and my family.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, man. We'd love to see it. We're always Buddy Gross fans, so we got you at least got two knuckleheads over here in your corner, nonetheless.
Well, man, I really appreciate that. I really do. We try hard at this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one where Andy and I have talked all the time where we have such a high amount of respect for what you guys do. And obviously like we have a passion for it too, but like we'll say we can't do what you guys do. Like in regard to one, obviously skill, but I'm saying like two, in regards to the lifestyle. I mean, you were talking earlier about barrel racing, how it's such a similar deal, and the time on the road, the sacrifice it takes to make it, the things you got to do in order to get there and be on top and stay on top. Yeah, it's a hard lifestyle. Like, I mean, I know people have talked about that before, but like it's not all sunshine and rainbows when you're out there on as a pro angler.
There's a lot of tears and on your knees praying. I'm telling you, we have there's something coming. I don't know what it is, but we've been in that valley and I'm ready to get back on top a little bit. I can tell you that.
Heck yeah, dude. Bring it on. Is that a cricket or a bird in the back?
Barn swallow.
Dude, we sold our place, that barndominium that y'all were talking about with all the storm. We went up selling that place and we bought another horses related by actually. We had to have some more land for horses. So we bought a tract of land. I built the barn first, and now we're actually trying to get ready to build a house. I'm just kind of waiting on the tides to turn on fishing. But we wound up leasing a place where we're sitting in the middle of 90 acres, and there's all kinds of wildlife. I mean, there's everything in here. I leased a house from a friend of ours, and my dog got bit by a copperhead the other day. So, I mean, like, we've got a little bit too much wildlife, I think.
Yeah. Keep them copperheads away from the horses.
Well, we're right at the foot of Lookout Mountain here where I'm at, and we're in the valley over here with our other farm. So the horses are like 10 minutes away from us, but it's beautiful though, guys. I'm telling you, I travel the country going everywhere, and this is home for me. I can't wait to get back. It's so pretty here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Michael Bradley says, I thought that was in my house. Honestly, it was sitting there for a second. I'm like, I can't tell because I've heard heard that noise. I can't put my name on it, what it exactly is, but like
I'm going with frog.
Yeah, okay. It's like a soothing sound, but also like if you don't know what it is, I feel like it's almost like a paranormal sound when you're sitting at night. You're like, I don't know if I want to hear that anymore.
Hey, I'm telling you, I mean, it's
croaker.
so cool out here, though. I mean, we can roll the windows down at night, or open the windows at night, and we can hear so much stuff. It's crazy.
It puts you to sleep, man.
It does.
Some people freak out about listening to coyotes and stuff, but like all that stuff,
awesome.
It soothes me. I don't know.
We've got about anything, any kind of wildlife there is, we have it right here where we're at right now.
That's awesome, dude. Heck yeah. Well, man, I got a couple more questions. They're fast, and we're gonna let you go here. But seriously, just want to say thank you again for taking the time out to chat with us, and it's been an amazing conversation. And hopefully get you back on here more after top 10 at Murray. But
yeah, that's what I've been doing, is rigging Murray baits all day long. That's why I'm sitting in the boat right now.
There you go. Heck yeah, dude. So I guess with the things that we talked about today, first question is, in your opinion, who do you think is the best angler in the world right now?
Michael Neal.
Dang. Okay. Any specific reason?
The boy is very good at everything that we're doing. He don't get as much credit, but if I put him one head to head against any of them, I think he's going to be the guy.
You probably got a lot of experience fishing against him being that chick too.
Yeah, we traveled together some, and I know how good he was back when we traveled together. We've not been around each other, but we are talking a lot more, and he has a great home life. He's recently married. He has a pretty good business running at home with a tackle store. He's got into farming, and he seems to be, not that he wasn't ever settled. He's more advanced than his age. He seems like he's 20 years older than he is. But the guy he's technique specific. He's really good at what he does. He does not get emotionally involved, and he can keep his cool where I've seen others can't. So I think he's one of the top guys.
Yeah, well, on that topic, Dayton Boat Dock is easily the coolest tackle shop I've been in countless times, and I've made it a habit the past few times. Sorry for Michael if you hear this, but I left my wallet specifically in the truck because I will spend too much money every time I go in there.
Mike,
Andy,
you
I'll have to get
catch
you
him
down
without
this
looking at live scope. But if you look at what he's doing with live scope now, he's a live scoping machine now. So he's figured it out, and he's my phone call when I need help a little bit. So he's one of them. But we got so many great ones. I mean, you can look at the list. I mean, everybody over here at the Leeds, you got to beat them all when you show up.
Yeah, it's a hard decision now for who's the best, and to kind of go and follow, and you'll probably see where we're going with this, but like for an offshore guy specifically, like yourself, who do you think is the best in the world?
Oh my gosh. Let's start over with the questions. I put him on that one, but golly.
Well, let's make this interesting. So let's take live completely out of the equation. Pre-live, the guy that was the best offshore. Feel free to say yourself too.
No, I'm not gonna do. I'd never do that. But man, nobody fishes offshore like that anymore, so that's kind of hard to do.
Right.
Man, that croaker is going.
He's after it. If I could set it up for you, I promise I would.
I think it kind of adds a cool ambiance to the show, to be honest.
I like it.
Man, you got me in a pickle. I don't know. I don't want to put a name on that one.
All right.
All the guys that fish, we just don't fish many offshore tournaments like we used to. You know, that time of year. So now, if they're not using live, there's not a lot of them out there doing it. I don't mean that to be negative, and I don't want to get back on the live, but you know, golly.
Yeah. Oh, we can skip.
You know, Polnick has to be there for me. Polnick makes it happen with or without it. So I'm gonna put Polnick in that list.
Yeah, I can get down with that. I mean, he was one of the later ones to put it on his boat too. You know, but still won an event on Santee without it when guys had it.
As far as just a great guy though, who really puts the homework in. I don't know if y'all know this about Polnick, but I don't. He stays every day of the tournament so he can shake the hand of the winner. Did y'all know that?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Love the hell out of that.
That's pretty stout. I mean, I don't know. I mean, now he has a family and he's still doing it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he always had a wife. I mean, I'm saying, but new baby and he's still sticking around and he's still doing that. He's a stand-up guy and he does good. I mean, I'm thinking of the offshore stuff. He always does good up north, and then he did what he did up there at Santee. So he's one of them for sure.
He's probably got one of the more diverse resumes of wins when it comes in a different way. But yeah, completely agree. I mean, never heard a single bad thing ever said about Polnick.
I like him a lot.
Never heard a single bad thing said about Buddy Gross either, though. So I'll say that.
There's some out there, I promise.
and if he has heard something, he probably ain't saying it. He's just being nice. No,
I'm opinionated.
Yeah, you always got those though. When you're winning as much, you're gonna have some of that. But last thing is, who do you think is the best trap fisherman?
That's me.
Okay, now you put yourself in the ringer.
I'm serious though. Like it's all those Spro guys that are on Spro team, they're all throwing it now, and they're all putting it to work. If you'll notice, every time I never used to see so many Aruka shads, but every time I look now, there's more and more Aruka shads on the deck of a boat. From the Johnsons to the Smiths to the News, they all got it. I mean, they're all using it, making it work.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. The Aruka shad's a bad dude. I can tell you, we're throwing it up here too. Yeah, we got you to blame for that.
It's bit.
Well, that's awesome, man. Well, with that, if anybody else hasn't tried the Aruka shad, there's a link down below. You can thank Buddy Gross and go check out that link. But man, seriously, thank you so much for taking the time out. And sorry for the delay getting things started, but your time means a lot to us, and I know that the people watching and listening agree.
Well, thank y'all for having me, and I'll be welcome to come back anytime.
Yes, sir. You always got a seat here, and we'll be rooting for you at Murray, man.
Thank you very much. Y'all have a great night.
Get him.
All right, we'll see you, buddy. All right, folks, there was Mr. Buddy Gross. Always class act, stand-up dude. And like I was saying from the intro, Buddy is a guy that I've studied for a long time. I mean, not saying that I've ever had any desire to go pro or anything, but there's just guys that, when you have a passion for the sport, there's guys that you analyze, the guys that you idolize. And, it's been a Buddy Gross for me. It's been Pollinix. It's been the Hank Parkers. And it's, there's just those good dudes and guys that do it that when you listen to a Buddy, it's a one that you can just sit back and listen. The amount of things that you can learn every time you talk to somebody, it's incredible, man. And he's, I mean, to his point though, tech has taken over the conversations, and it's kind of
everything. Like, let's be real. It's
I saw something Ronnie Moore put out on Twitter or X, whatever the heck you want to call it these days. But something said about I'm trying to remember. I'm gonna butcher his exact post, but it was something. Who was an angler that doesn't get enough credit or something like that? That's underrated. I can't remember the specific thing, but somebody said Buddy Gross, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like Buddy, pre forward facing was dominating. I mean, I went through, and because we're having him on the show today, I went through and actually like Sunday and yesterday and this morning I was watching some like the U-Fall tournament. We had the monster bag to come back, throwing a 1 ounce jig.
Yeah,
like it's some of the old highlights are freaking awesome, man. And some of the stuff that he's taught on simply just the 2 shows he's been on this show has been incredible. So big thank you to Buddy again. Always appreciate it. Make sure you guys go and follow his stuff. I got it linked down below. Make sure you guys follow along with Buddy, and cool to see what him and his family are doing with the barrel racing, things like that. And we got old Schnupp in the comment section. We got Mr. Mike Schnupp in here. Yeah, he did win offshore on the Harris chain, throwing the Aruka Shad, and as well as throwing an A-rig. Or not, good God, not an A-rig.
Nice.
The C-rig is what I meant to say. Yeah. The other rig, the C-rig. He was throwing that with the Zoom Z-Crawl worm, I believe it's called. We've got that actually linked down below to Omni as well. You guys can use our discount code, of course, as well as if you up here on the screen. If you're on YouTube, you can just scan that QR code and take you to a free trial of Premium Pro. Which some dang cool Premium Pro stuff coming down the pipe.
It seems like every couple months they're putting something else.
But there's going to be a pretty dang cool opportunity for Premium Pro members only coming up soon to get in on, potentially compete, potentially win a lot of big stuff against some pretty big name people. And that's about all I'm allowed to say about it before the people at Omnia get mad at me for leaking anything. But either way, now is the time to be a Premium Pro member because literally it's like $50 a year. You get 10% back on all your sales, and they'll do some pop-up 20% too. So you make a lot of money back on free tackle, as well as you get all the mapping features, which are freaking ridiculous. But feel free to scan that QR code, but it's always linked down below as well for our MP3 folk. And which I'll remind you guys, Blackfish gear giveaway going on the next week. We're only going to run this for people that have listened or watched this YouTube video and listened to the MP3. So you have now until next episode, next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern is when we're going to draw the winner. We'll announce it on the show, put it on social media. Basically, all you got to do is leave us a rating and review. I'll go through it really quick again for you guys. Maybe if you've tuned in or just hopping in on just the live here, is if you go on Apple or Spotify, leave us a rating or review. If you've already done that before, just send us an email or DM that you've already done so. We'll add you into the running. But if you haven't, just send a screenshot of it. Super simple. DM it or email it. We'll add you guys into the running, and you get an extra entry if you go and do the same thing for Biz from the Bass Boat, Kayak Fishing Weekly, and Lure Lab. So that's 3 of the other shows. So you can get 4 entries. Triple your chances of winning. And again, you get to pick your own sun hoodie. You can pick the Angler sun hoodie, the Swift sun hoodie, pick whatever color you want, size you want. So we're kind of leaving this open-ended for you guys to go and win and pick exactly what you want. You're not just stuck with whatever we choose. But we got way more opportunities coming down the pipe for our friends over at Blackfish Gear. So it's pretty sweet. But trying to think what else we got in the hopper, Andy. I think that really covers it. So next week, like I mentioned, we'll have Garrett Paquette on the show. We're waiting on a few others, but I think Mr. Caleb Bell is coming back on the show.
Nice.
Mr. Adam Bartuzik, who's an OG from fantasy fishing, is going to come back on the show, who's hot off a great finish from Kentucky Lake, which Kentucky Lake's coming back as a smallmouth fishery. It was pretty crazy to see the weights from there on the
I
invitation.
think that'd be a fun episode to have Barden on to talk about if he knows anything about like why the smallmouth are taking over that lake. So cue the Barden episode.
Well, it's funny you say that. I actually had a nice almost hour-long conversation on the phone with Barden today. Got to catch up with our pal, Mr. Stephen Barden, and he's got some pretty epic stuff coming down the pipe for 2025 that he's going to have the Serious Angler boys involved in. So it's under wraps for right now, but it's going to be pretty dang cool to see.
Awesome.
But we're definitely overdue for a Barden episode. We'll have to get him back on here pretty soon. But if there's other people you guys want to hear on this show, by all means, throw them out there. I apologize again for no part 2 tonight. It kind of fell through. It's been a hectic couple of weeks of scheduling, but we'll get those back up and firing. And I think we're due for a Jeopardy episode.
Yeah.
What do you guys
just
think?
blame me. I've been slacking being on the water every day. So
no, it's not your fault. I'm the one that schedules the damn things for the show. I mean, you got Lure Lab on lock and people are loving that. And people are sitting there like, why is this scrub on Serious Angler just not getting this stuff together? But either way, I think Buddy Gross alone is an outstanding show. But some people will be like, hey, what happened to the Friday shows? I'm like, well, it's because I slacked and I didn't get a good part 2. So that's on me. But either way, hopefully you guys are enjoying the show. I know there's so many dang podcasts out there, and it's making it rather difficult, I guess, for some shows in regards to just the saturation of it all. But appreciate every single one of you that come in, week out. We're seeing a bunch of the same names for over years now, especially on the live streams, and it means the world to us. So appreciate every single one of you guys, and we're trying to figure out more ways to give back to you guys. So we enjoy it, and we enjoy that you guys enjoy it. So it's a cool deal. But Andy, I think it's gonna wrap things up here. But folks, appreciate y'all, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.